Today we're looking at the H1B visa and L1 visa and which one would make more sense in what types of scenarios for an employer. My name is Rahim Danani. I'm a U.S. immigration attorney. I've been practicing U.S. immigration law for more than 25 years. Let's first break down what an H1B visa involves, and then we'll look at what an L1 visa requires, and then we'll do some scenarios where we'll break down which visa is probably a better option, H or L. So the H1 is for people who are working in a specialty occupation, which basically means that the employer has a job that requires at a minimum a bachelor's degree, and the employee has a bachelor's degree that's related to that particular job. For example, if you had a processing plant and you were hiring a mechanical engineer, then if the employee has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, that would probably be a decent option for an H1B filing. Now, the H1B has some caveats to it, and the biggest thing that you kind of need to consider is that there are only 85,000 H1Bs available each year, and every year there are way more than 85,000 applicants for the H1B visa. So what ends up happening is that the USCIS runs a lottery. In March, they accept applications, and then they select applicants in the first week of April. And then if the applicant is selected in April, then you can file a full H1B application. If that H1B application gets approved, then the candidate would be eligible to start working in H1B status beginning October 1st. If the employee has already gone through the H1B process and they have an H1B visa and they're just transferring to your company from another employer, then in that case, you don't have to worry about this H1B lottery or the cap at all, because they've already been counted against the cap, and you can just file a new H1B as a change of employer application. Now, for the L1A, it's for executives and managers, and also there's an L1B for people who have specialized knowledge or advanced knowledge about a company regarding their processes. And for the L1A, there has to have been a relationship between the U.S. company and a foreign company. The relationship has to be, one of them is a parent, branch, subsidiary, or an affiliate of the other operation. And then on top of that, the employee has to have worked for one out of the past 3 years overseas, either as an executive, a manager, or as a specialized knowledge worker. The upside for the L1 is that there's no cap or lottery that way that there is for the H1B. And also in some cases for the H1B, you have to go through what's called a PERM application, which is a very lengthy process in the steps to get a green card. And for the L1A, you don't have to go through that PERM process. So right now, you're probably saving like 18 months because you don't have to do the PERM process for the L1A. For the L1B, you still have to go through it, but the L1A does have that exception. So let's look at some scenarios and when each application is maybe a better fit. Our first one, let's say that you have a real estate development company and you want to bring an executive to the U.S. to start up a new office, and you're in January and you really want to get this executive over maybe in March or April. In that case, the H1B is probably not a good fit, because even if you got through the lottery, the H1B doesn't kick in until October 1st, and you need that executive in well before October 1st. So in that case, I would probably try an L1A visa. In our second scenario, let's say you're a data analytics company in the US and you don't have any type of an office overseas. In that case, it's a no-brainer. L1A doesn't work because you don't meet the basic criteria of having the overseas office, and the employee could not have worked for the overseas office. So your only option in that case would be try for the H1B. And then for our third scenario, let's say that you're a multinational company, you have offices overseas and you have an office in the US. Let's say that the job in the US, you might be able to squeeze it in as a specialty occupation that requires a bachelor's degree, but you're not quite sure, it may or may not work, but the employee has some very specialized skill sets that are not readily available to the US market, and that your company has trained that person in that skill set, and you want to bring them to the US to apply those specialized skills. In that case, the L1B would probably be a better option because you're not quite sure it's going to qualify for the H1B because of the bachelor's degree requirement, and the employee has some really specialized skill sets that you could use for the L1B visa option. So those are three basic scenarios that you can kind of think about in deciding when an H1B works and when an L1 works. But generally, if they're an external hire, then the H1B could possibly work. But if you're hiring somebody internally from an overseas office, then if you can fit them into an L1A or an L1B, that's just going to be a better option because of timing issues. I do have another video on how we worked through a situation where somebody had tried for an H1B for a couple of years and it didn't work out, and so the employer decided they were going to go for an L1A instead. And you can click on the video card above to learn more about how we moved an employee from an H1B candidate to an L1A candidate, and we're successful in getting that L1A approved. I hope that's helpful. I'll talk to you later. Bye.